20, so we can resume. Mr. Robinson or Mr. Linus, shall I come to you first? I'll come to Mr. Linus first. Do you explain what you've handed up?
Yes, sir. What you have is a copy of a marked up version of the aerial photo that we know we need to translate into an amendment that takes the same base as what you have in Annex 3. But for present purposes, what you see is effectively an extension to the step-in at the bottom of boundary 1A on inner boundary section 4. So if you see it right at the very bottom of 1A, there's a little nib, and we're just proposing to extend that a little further to the north. Do you see that? Thank you, sir. We've shown a copy of the plan that you, or the aerial photo that you have to Mr. Robinson. I think from our part it doesn't affect anything, obviously, we've said already, but if Mr. Robinson always has any comments, we can respond to them.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, and thank you to Ms. Linus and Ms. Hartley, Ely Brown, sorry. And the sports club, I'm sure, will be pleased with the outcome of that. I think my points relating to the lime tree site to the north still remain, though. The site, if the sports club is excluded from the green belt, then lime trees will be part of the contiguous urban form of York, sitting within the green belt, but adjacent to a site that's outside the green belt. I can't see many other, if any, examples in. I've just had a quick scan of the evidence of anywhere else, certainly in the section 3s and 4 of the evidence, where a site is contiguous, but it's proposed to be outside of the green belt. Sorry, inside the green belt, next to sites that are going to be outside the green belt. There are examples where there are isolated sites on the other side of a road, or where there's a strong, clear boundary between the two. And the green belt boundary falls between the two, and I accept that, but this is... I understand that one of the points is that there's a mature tree boundary to the north of the squash clubs, which are the northernmost squash courts, sorry, which are the northernmost buildings on the aerial photograph you've just been sent. And this is perhaps slightly unfair in that I've had a chance to look at the planning history just during the break. And note there are a couple of TPO applications to remove some of those trees. And this evidence was prepared quite a long time ago, and I accept absolutely that those applications probably weren't available to you when you're preparing the original evidence in 2020 and 2021. But something worth considering if the rationale for excluding lime trees, or including lime trees in the greenbelt, drawing the line between the two is that there's a mature tree boundary between. It'd be worth undertaking some site visits and considering that, whether those works have been done or not, and I can give you the reference for the relevant TPOs. But if that's the only, or if that's one of the main reasons for drawing the boundary where it is, it's worth just checking that. In terms of, otherwise the building's set. Well, I'd make the point as well, there's lots of trees around there anyway that form boundaries for sites that aren't going to be in the green belt and sites that are going to be in the green belt. So I think that I'd go back to it being contiguous, and if that boundary started to be eroded by trees being removed. I can't see that the management of the lime tree site going forward, were it not to be in the green belt, couldn't be managed by normal development management policies. It seems an unnecessary burden to be put on the site for its future management and development, should it be required, to be in the green belt almost arbitrarily. I keep going back to the fact the site's developed. By putting it in the green belt, it won't make that site any more open than it is, and normal development management policies would stop it being overdeveloped in the future. But yes, I would urge you to consider particularly the trees matter and the TPO applications matter during your site visit. I can forward you the references if that would help in your consideration.
I'm not sure we'd need the TPO references, but yes, we'll certainly visit the site and have a look at that. But just so that I'm understanding the point properly, is lime trees actually shown on this aerial photograph that I've been handed up?
Just at the very north, to the north of that red line, lime trees is the next.
So it's in.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I was just pointing at that. So as long as I'm understanding the point, that will inform the site visit. Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Mr. Linus, was there anything you needed to come back on?
Thank you. Just a couple of points of clarification. So, yes, there's acknowledgement that there are trees, but it is actually not just a boundary point, it's an openness point with the setting of lime trees. And obviously, normal development management would not protect openness, as had been suggested. And my final point, if it's helpful, we talked about precedents of other examples which could be related to this. In phase 3, we talked about Strensall around Queen Elizabeth Barracks and Strensall Park. That might be a useful reference point for a similar example. There may be others, it's just one that comes to mind. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'm going to ask whether there's anything else anyone wants to raise on these specific boundaries that we were scheduled to cover this morning. If not, I'm going to close this particular hearing and we'll resume tomorrow at 9:30 and see how we get on with the next batch. In which case, until tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir. And we'll provide A3 copies of the sections for tomorrow to you in advance of tomorrow.
Brilliant. Thank you. Until tomorrow, then. Great.